jobs were the black jobs. All the supervisory jobs were white jobs. Bethlehem also had apprenticeship programs. You become an electrician, you can become this, you can become all white. There were several other things which I'm trying to remember right now. In any event, I'll get back to it. At 2 o'clock this morning will pop into my mind. So leave your telephone number so I can we learned from these people. The other thing I wanted to emphasize here is at that time they had black locals in the steelworkers union. They had separate locals, whites and blacks. And one of the men who walked in is Lee Douglas, a black man who was a leader of the men and good organizer. And he walked in with two of his other leaders, Reverend Hines and Francis Brown. And those were the three guys. So what we did is we set up interviews. They'd send people in to see us at night over Arcade Street. And we interviewed dozens and dozens of workers from all different departments. And we had what we thought was a really overwhelming case of discrimination, just based on what they told us. As I said before, any decent job was a white job, any crappy job was a black job. With no hope of promotion, really. And the other thing that was a big problem was seniority. Bethlehem had a rule that if you, let's assume you were a black laborer and you were working at the steel mill, shoveling coal or whatever they did, the hottest, I mean, you're talking about degrees that are hundreds of degrees of heat. And let's say you're one of the lucky ones, like winning the lottery, you're going to get a promotion. Well, if you get a promotion into another unit, what happens is you lose all your seniority. I mean, that was their seniority rules, which in effect perpetuates the white worker's superior position, because you may not want to take that better job if you're going to lose your seniority. You have 18, 20, 12 years in. You don't want to lose it. Seniority is very, very important in terms of determining who's going to be laid off first and who's going to be retained. That was part of our problem. So once we gathered all of our figures and the facts, we contacted the Department of Defense. So I want you to remember now, at this point in time, we had executive orders date back to the Second World War. They date back to the eve of the Second World War, and been built upon since, which in effect guarantee, not outlaw, let me put it this way, outlaws discrimination in hiring based on race for federal agencies and for federal contractors. So Bethlehem, which had a lot of money tied up in federal contracts, were vulnerable. So that's why we decided to go to the Department of Defense and lay out our case and get a reaction. Well, we laid out our case, and they said, well, it's not us. We came to the wrong agency. It's the Department of Labor. So we went to the Department of Labor. He said, it's not us. It's the Department of Defense. The Legal Defense Fund, the NAACP's Legal Defense Fund, their attorney for the Baltimore area at that time was a guy by the name of Gerald Smith. So we spoke to Gerald, and he agreed to be the Department of Labor. Let me go back to the Department of Defense, which is really just a human touch to this thing. One of the people we spoke to at Defense was a black man who was his job was he was like an equal employment specialist. And he had, he had a good job. And he felt very, very threatened by this. And I could understand why he felt threatened. And he felt very threatened by this, and I can understand why he felt threatened. But you recognize the human reaction, but nevertheless sometimes you have say I, that's the wrong word, we just paid attention to his reaction, which is understandable. You get nowhere. So anyway, we contacted the Department of Labor. Well, before we, I'm skipping. There's one thing I left out. We decided we have to let Bethlehem Steel know about our findings and what we want done. So without any publicity, we said nothing to anyone. We didn't let the media know about this. We didn't tell any reporters about this. Lee Douglas got black workers involved, and we decided we were going to go to Bethlehem Steel in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, to the headquarters. And we roll up there with 4 buses, the 4 school buses full of black workers and a few white guys. And we get off the bus, and I was one of the first off the bus. There's a guy there waiting for us. And you ever see a movie, you know, with a punch-drunk boxer whose nose is on the other side of his face? That's who met us. And I don't know, maybe my imagination, but what I remember is he had a little club in his hand as we were. The club wasn't so little, by the way. He was more like this. So I think we got the hell beat out of them. We got out, they were very, very nice. Thank God. And we walked up to the building. Oh, why were they? I was going to meet. And the interesting thing about that building is the entrance was a revolving door. Yeah. So we go in the revolving door, and Bethlehem, they're no fools. They locked the door while we were in it. So in effect, the beauty of it is they locked themselves in, or they locked us out. So in effect, you know, their day was shot. So what we asked for, Lee Douglas really wanted this, was a meeting with the top brass of Bethlehem. So they reluctantly agreed, and a group of the black workers went in and discussed the findings and what they wanted. And as a matter of fact, Lee Douglas, he came out of that meeting and said that was the proudest day of his life. And that in itself made that trip worthwhile. And Bethlehem promised Lee, you go back to Sparrows Point, as soon as you get there, we're going to start working on this. Now, Lee was no fool. I mean, he knew about union negotiations, negotiating not with unions, but also against them. And we figured we'd have to follow up with something else. We just couldn't take them at their word. So about 3 or 4 weeks later, we decided we'll make another secret raid, another secret raid. This time not to Bethlehem, but to the Department of Labor. So we loaded up 3 buses, 3 school buses with steel workers. And let's see, we had, I don't know, does anybody here remember the name Walter Lively? Okay, good for you. Well, Walter was one of the guys with us. Walter was a young man. I think he had a black father and a white mother, or vice versa. Very light skin, passed for white. And he had an outfit which gave coal to the poor. A lot of poor people in Baltimore City, they heat their houses, or at least they did back then. They heat their houses with a coal furnace. And he'd make coal available to them. So we go up to Washington, we go into the Department of Labor, and the poor receptionist says, "What, can I help you?" I said, "Yes, we want to meet with Secretary of Labor Works." She said, "I'll call ahead." So she called ahead, and the word we got was, he's out of town. He's flying to California. So we said, "Okay, we're going to wait. The plane goes to the west, it'll come to the east, we'll wait. And he comes back to me." So that afternoon, so the reason why I brought up Walter Lively, so while we're schmoozing downstairs and we're sitting around, Walter quickly decides to reconnoiter through the building. And Walter comes back about a half an hour, he says, Words is here, he's on the 5th floor. So, again, our presence was enough to force a meeting, and we met with words. And as a result of that meeting, of course, we presented our findings, and it's not that they were completely in the dark about it. At least not that they should have been completely in the dark about it, because there should be periodic reviews, because Bethlehem was an employee with a hell of a lot of government contracts. So in any event, we met with him, and that, as a result of that meeting, they scheduled a compliance hearing. I don't know if any of you, is anybody here familiar with compliance hearings? Okay, well, what a compliance hearing does is the federal government determines whether or not you're in compliance with federal law. You, the contractor, are in compliance with the federal law. And I told a friend of mine, a colleague who happens to be here today, about the problem what we were going to have with it. I needed witnesses for the compliance hearing. And I said, I have plenty of black witnesses. He says, well, wait a second. You know Stan Collins? And I said, yeah, sure. He says, well, Stan's father was an engineer that worked for Bethlehem, and Stan worked for, there are two Stans involved here. The Stan I'm talking about who worked for Bethlehem, his name is Stan Collins. And maybe he'll testify. So I got in touch with Stan Collins, and he agreed to come to the hearing and testify as a witness. And Stan, because what happened is, you know how you network? Well, the white kids, the kids whose parents were white, they were easily able to get summer jobs while they were going to school. The summer jobs are at Bethlehem. And Stan worked in their employment office for several summers. So he was able to really give a very, very vivid and accurate description of the fact that there were no blacks in the apprenticeship program, dirtiest and hottest and most dangerous jobs were black, no supervisors, no black apprentices, etc. And I think his testimony was compelling, but the weight of the evidence was so overwhelming that Bethlehem received a letter from the Department of Labor threatening further action unless certain steps were taken, and they laid out the corrective steps. And that case just dragged on forever. But even though we didn't finish it very, very quickly, the changes that went into effect as a result of the compliance hearing and the fact that national attention was focused on Bethlehem, they started making changes almost immediately after the compliance hearing. In addition, Bethlehem also had a large plant up near Buffalo called their Lackawanna plant. And that plant, they were a little ahead of us because they were already in court. And finally, some of the workers wanted to bring individual suits based on discrimination. And I filed a class action suit on their behalf. I guess we were in the 70s by now. And I don't know if any of you, the name Ken Johnson means anything to you. But he joined Gerald Smith as the NAACP attorney. And then he went into private practice. And he became a judge at Baltimore City Circuit Court. So he picked up did a lot of the heavy lifting on that lawsuit too. And I think that's about does it. But before I conclude, I just want to remind everybody what a wonderful day tomorrow is going to be. I mean, we're going to witness the second inauguration of the black president. And who would have dreamt that would be possible 50 years ago? How about 10 years ago? I mean, it just gives you an idea how far we've come as a nation. But also, if you take a look at the political picture today, also gives you an idea of how far we still have to go. Thank you for your patience.